I am the man who taught my future son-in-law the most expensive lesson of his life. And it started with 4 words he shouldn't have said. The weight of those words still sits heavy in my chest. Even now, months after everything's settled, you simply don't understand. That's what Derek told me across a table at one of Toronto's finest restaurants, his voice dripping with the kind of condescension that comes from someone who's never been told no. He had no idea who I was, no idea what I'd built, no idea that with one phone call, I could dismantle everything he thought made him superior. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where it all began, back to when I still believed my daughter Emma had found someone worthy of her. It was a Tuesday evening in late September when Emma called me. I was in my workshop, finishing a birdhouse I'd been crafting from reclaimed barnwood. I've always worked with my hands, even after I sold my construction company 5 years ago. The business had grown from a single crew to one of the largest commercial development firms in Ontario, but I never forgot where I started swinging a hammer in the rain, sleeping in my truck between jobs. "Dad," Derek proposed. Emma's voice crackled through the phone, excitement spilling over every word. "We're engaged." I set down my chisel and smiled, even though she couldn't see it. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. I'm happy for you." And I was. Emma deserved happiness. After her mother Sarah passed 3 years ago from cancer, watching Emma rebuild her life had been the only thing keeping me going. Sarah would have loved this moment. She would have cried happy tears and immediately started planning. "We want to have dinner this Saturday," Emma continued. "Derek's parents are flying in from Vancouver. It'll be all of us, you, me, Derek, his mom, and Dad." He made reservations at Canoe. Canoe, the restaurant on the 54th floor of the TD Bank Tower, where a single meal could cost more than some people's weekly grocery bill. I'd been there exactly once, for a business dinner years ago. It wasn't my scene, but I understood what it meant to Derek. It was a statement, a declaration that he'd arrived. "Sounds perfect," I told Emma. "I'll be there." "Oh, and Dad?" She paused. "Maybe wear the gray suit? The one we got you for the company anniversary dinner?" There it was. That small, careful suggestion that told me everything I needed to know about what Derek had been saying, about how I dressed, about how I lived, about how I didn't quite fit into the world he was pulling Emma toward. "Of course," I said quietly. "Whatever makes you happy." After we hung up, I stood in my workshop for a long time, looking at the half-finished birdhouse. Sarah used to say I had sawdust in my veins instead of blood. She loved that about me, that I never pretended to be something I wasn't. Even when the money started rolling in, even when we could afford anything we wanted, we stayed in our modest home in Etobicoke. We drove practical cars. We donated quietly to the hospital that tried to save Sarah, and to the food bank where we once received help when Emma was small and times were impossibly tight. Derek knew none of this. To him, I was just Emma's father, the retired tradesman who lived in a small house and drove a 10-year-old Silverado. He'd never asked about my past, never asked what I did before retirement, and I never offered. I learned long ago that people reveal who they truly are when they think you have nothing they want. Saturday arrived with that peculiar crispness that marks early autumn in Toronto. I put on the gray suit, looked at myself in the mirror, and saw a 5-year-old man with calloused hands and sun-weathered skin. The suit fit well enough, but it couldn't hide what I was, what I'd always been. A builder, a worker, a man more comfortable with blueprints than balance sheets. Even though I'd learned to read both, the elevator ride to the 54th floor of the TD Tower felt longer than it should have. My reflection in the polished brass doors showed a man out of place, and I wondered if that's what everyone else would see too. The restaurant was everything you'd expect. Floor-to-ceiling windows, showcasing Toronto's skyline. White tablecloths so crisp they looked like they'd never been used, and servers who moved like dancers in a carefully choreographed performance. Emma spotted me first. She waved from a table by the window, and my heart did what it always did when I saw her, swelled with a pride so fierce it hurt. She looked so much like Sarah, same dark hair, same bright eyes, same smile that could light up a room. "Dad!" She hugged me tight. "You look great." Derek stood to shake my hand. He was tall, maybe 6'2", with the kind of polished appearance that comes from expensive haircuts and personal trainers. His handshake was firm but brief, the kind that says, "I'm acknowledging you but not really engaging." "Thomas," he said, not Tom, which is what my friends called me. Thomas, formal, distant. "Derek." I nodded. His parents were already seated. Robert and Patricia Ashworth. Robert had silver hair, perfectly styled, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my truck's monthly payment. Patricia wore pearls and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "You must be Emma's father," Patricia said, extending a hand adorned with rings that caught the light. "We've heard so much about you." I doubted that was true, but I shook her hand anyway. "Pleased to meet you both." We settled into our seats, and almost immediately, I felt it, that subtle shift in the air that happens when people are making judgments. Robert's eyes flickered over my suit, my worn watch, my hands that no amount of scrubbing could completely clean of the honest dirt that accumulates from a lifetime of work. The conversation started safely enough. Derek's job as an investment banker at Thornton Financial, Emma's work as an accountant at a mid-sized firm, Robert's position as a senior VP at a tech company in Vancouver, Patricia's charity work. I mostly listened, answering questions when asked but not volunteering much. This was Emma's night, and I was just there to support her. "So, Thomas," Robert said, leaning back in his chair with a glass of wine. "Emma mentioned you're retired. What did you do before?" "Construction," I said simply. "Ah, that one syllable carried volumes. Hard work, I imagine." "Honest work," I corrected gently. Patricia jumped in, probably sensing the tension. "And you live in Etobicoke, yes? Such a charming area. Very traditional." "Traditional, code for old. Working class, not trendy." "It's home," I said. "We raised Emma there. Good schools, good neighbors." Derek chose that moment to signal the waiter. "Let's order, shall we? Robert, Patricia, the tasting menu here is exceptional. 7 courses, each one better than the last." He didn't ask me if I wanted the tasting menu, just assumed. The waiter appeared, and Derek ordered for the table with the confidence of someone who'd never had to check the right side of a menu. As the first course arrived, some kind of foam with microgreens that looked like it had been assembled with tweezers, the conversation shifted to the wedding. "We're thinking the Royal Canadian Yacht Club," Derek announced. "Late June, perhaps. Outdoor ceremony, if weather permits." Emma's eyes were shining. She'd always wanted a summer wedding. Sarah and I got married at City Hall with 2 witnesses and went to Swiss Chalet afterward. It was perfect for us, but I wanted more for Emma. "That sounds beautiful," I said to her. Not to Derek, to her. "It'll be quite the event," Patricia added. "We're expecting around 200 guests. Derek's colleagues from Thornton, our friends from Vancouver, Robert's business associates." The bill was climbing in my head. The venue alone would be astronomical. But if that's what Emma wanted, if it made her happy, I'd find a way to contribute. "Dad," Emma said, reaching across to touch my hand, "I know it's a lot. Derek and I have been saving, and his parents have generously offered to help with." "I'd like to contribute," I interrupted quietly. "To my daughter's wedding." The table went silent. Derek's fork paused halfway to his mouth. Patricia's smile became fixed. Robert's eyebrows rose slightly. "That's very kind," Derek said slowly. "But I'm sure Emma and I can handle the financial aspects. No need to stretch yourself." Stretch myself? As if he knew anything about my finances. As if he'd bothered to ask. "I insist," I said, keeping my voice level. "She's my only daughter. Her mother would have wanted her to have the wedding of her dreams." Emma's eyes were getting wet. "Dad, you don't have to." "I want to." Derek exchanged a look with his father. It was quick, but I caught it. That look that said, "Let the old man have his dignity. We'll cover the real expenses." The second course arrived. Some kind of scallop situation that was beautifully plated but wouldn't satisfy a sparrow. I ate it slowly, watching the dynamics at the table shift and settle. Robert started talking about investment strategies. Derek jumped in with enthusiasm. throwing around terms like liquidity ratios and market volatility with the practiced ease of someone who wanted everyone to know how smart he was. "Of course, Thomas, this is probably all a bit over your head," Derek said with a laugh that was meant to sound friendly but landed somewhere else entirely. "Finance can be quite complex if you're not in the industry." I could have told him then. Could have mentioned that I'd managed a multi-million-dollar construction business for 30 years, that I'd negotiated contracts that would make his quarterly bonuses look like pocket change, that I understood cash flow and profit margins and risk assessment better than most MBAs. But I didn't. Instead, I just nodded and said, "I'm sure you're very good at what you do." The third course came, then the fourth. The conversation flowed around me like a river around a stone. They talked about their ski chalet in Whistler, their timeshare in Cabo, the new Audi Derek was considering. And with each course, with each casual mention of expense and luxury and exclusivity, I felt the distance growing between their world and mine. Or rather, the world they thought was mine. Emma tried to include me. She really did. Asked about the birdhouses I was making, about my garden, about the neighbors. But each time, the conversation would slide back to Derek's world, like water finding its level. By the time dessert arrived, some deconstructed something or other that looked more like art than food, I'd made a decision. I wasn't going to fit into their evening. I wasn't even going to try. "This has been lovely," I said, setting down my napkin. "But I should probably head home. Early morning tomorrow." "Oh, Dad, no," Emma protested. "We haven't even talked about the engagement party yet." "Engagement party?" "Yes," Patricia brightened. "We're hosting it at our country club in Vancouver. Just a small gathering, 70, 80 people. We'll fly Emma out, of course, and you're welcome to join if you'd like to make the trip." Welcome to join. Not expected. Not insisted upon. Welcome, if I'd like to make the trip. "I'll check my calendar," I said, standing. Derek stood too, hand extended. "Thanks for coming, Thomas. Really means a lot to Emma that you could make it." Could make it? As if I might not have been able to afford the time away from... What? My retirement? My birdhouse hobby? I shook his hand anyway, hugged Emma, nodded to Robert and Patricia, and I left. The elevator ride down felt longer than the ride up. I stood alone in the mirrored box, watching myself descend, and I thought about Sarah, about what she'd say if she were here. She'd probably tell me to give Derek time, that people can change, that maybe he was just nervous and overcompensating. But Sarah had always seen the best in people. I'd learned to see what was actually there. I drove home through the dark Toronto streets, past the CN Tower lit up against the night sky, past the glittering condos and trendy restaurants, and all the markers of a city that had changed so much since I first arrived here 45 years ago, with nothing but a tool belt and determination. My phone buzzed at a red light. "Emma, Dad, I'm so sorry about tonight. Derek can be intense sometimes. He just wants to make a good impression." "He did," I said. And it was true. He'd made an impression, just not the one he'd intended. His parents they're used to a certain lifestyle. But that doesn't mean they're not good people. And Derek, he really loves me, Dad. He wants to give me everything. "I know, sweetheart." And about the wedding contribution, you really don't have to. I know money's probably tight on your pension. There it was again, the assumption, the belief that I was barely scraping by, that offering to help with the wedding would mean sacrificing something important. I almost told her then, almost explained that my pension was actually the structured payout from selling my company, that the money sitting in various investments and trusts could cover her wedding 10 times over and still leave plenty for her inheritance. But I didn't, because I wanted to see what Derek would do, how he'd act, who he'd reveal himself to be when he thought I had nothing he needed. "Let me worry about that," I told Emma. "You just focus on being happy." Over the next few weeks, wedding planning kicked into high gear. Emma would call me with updates excitedly at first, then with growing stress as Derek's vision for the wedding grew more elaborate. "He wants ice sculptures," she told me one afternoon. Plural. "And he's insisting on flying in a chef from New York for the reception dinner." "What do you want?" I asked. She was quiet for a moment. I just want to marry him, Dad. All the rest. It's nice, but it's not what matters. But Derek thought it mattered. And Robert and Patricia thought it mattered. And somehow, Emma's simple wish for a beautiful wedding had morphed into a production designed to impress people I doubted she even knew. I got the invitation to the engagement party 3 weeks later. Thick cardstock, embossed lettering, the works. It was being held at the Vancouver Country Club on a Saturday in November. Flights, hotel, everything would be expensive. For someone on a pension, it might be prohibitive. I called Emma. I'll be there. Really? Relief flooded her voice. Oh, Dad, thank you. I know it's a lot of travel, but it would mean the world to me. I booked my flight that day. First class, though I didn't mention that to Emma. I also made another call to an old friend who sat on the board of directors at Thornton Financial, the firm where Derek worked. James, I said when he answered. It's Thomas. I need a favor. Tom, haven't heard from you in months. How's retirement treating you? Can't complain. Listen, I need some information, discreetly, about an investment banker at your firm, Derek Ashworth. There was a pause. Any particular reason? He's engaged to my daughter. Ah, another pause. Give me a day. James called back the next morning with a comprehensive rundown. Derek was 35, had been with Thornton for 8 years, currently managing a portfolio of mid-level clients. His performance was good but not exceptional. He'd been passed over for senior partner twice. He was ambitious, hungry to move up, and very aware that his current trajectory wasn't matching his lifestyle. Interesting thing, though, James added. He's currently courting a major client for the firm. If he lands it, it would be career-making. We're talking a potential promotion, corner office, the works. What client? James named a holding company I was very familiar with, because I owned it. Is that so? I said quietly. Yeah. The principals are notoriously private. Nobody at the firm has even met them face to face. All communications go through lawyers, but the potential account is massive. Whoever brings them in will basically write their own ticket. After we hung up, I sat in my workshop for a long time, turning a piece of wood over in my hands. Derek was chasing the very client that could make his career, and he had no idea that client was his future father-in-law. The universe, it seemed, had a sense of irony. November arrived with the kind of gray, cold rain that makes you question why anyone lives in Canada. I flew to Vancouver on Friday, rented a car, checked into the hotel near the country club. Saturday dawned clear and cold. I put on the same gray suit, looked at myself in the mirror, and wondered what Sarah would think of what I was about to do. The Vancouver Country Club was exactly what you'd expect. Manicured lawns, views of the mountains, valets, and waitstaff dressed better than I was. The engagement party was in the main ballroom, decorated within an inch of its life with white flowers and twinkling lights. Emma found me at the entrance. She looked beautiful in a blue dress, but there was tension around her eyes. Dad, you made it. Wouldn't miss it, sweetheart. Derek appeared behind her, hand possessively on her shoulder. Thomas, glad you could make the trip. Wouldn't have missed it, I repeated. The party was in full swing, easily 100 people, maybe more. I recognized no one except Emma and Derek. Everyone else was from his world. His Vancouver friends, his parents' friends, his colleagues from the Toronto office who'd flown out. I found a quiet corner and watched. Watched Derek work the room like a politician, shaking hands, laughing at jokes, making sure everyone saw him with his beautiful fiancé on his arm. Watched Emma try to keep up with conversations about stock options and investment portfolios and real estate markets. Then Robert clinked a glass, and the room fell silent. Thank you all for coming, he began. Patricia and I couldn't be happier to celebrate our son Derek's engagement to the lovely Emma. Applause. Smiles. Derek pulled Emma closer. When Derek brought Emma home and told us he'd found the one, we were thrilled. She's smart, accomplished, and clearly adores our son. More applause. Emma was blushing. Derek has always known what he wanted and gone after it with determination, Robert continued. Whether it was making partner at Thornton or finding the perfect woman, he doesn't settle for anything less than the best. The speech went on, but I'd stopped listening. Because in all of it, In all of Robert's glowing words about his son, there wasn't a single mention of Emma's family, of her background, of the people who raised her. When the speech ended and the champagne was poured, I made my way through the crowd toward Emma. Derek intercepted me. "Thomas, enjoying yourself? It's quite the party. Only the best for Emma." He smiled, but it was the smile of someone checking a box. "Listen, about the wedding contribution you mentioned, Emma and I talked, and we really don't want you to strain yourself financially. I know construction pensions aren't exactly generous." There it was. Not even subtle anymore. "I appreciate your concern," I said carefully, "but I meant what I said. I want to contribute to my daughter's wedding." Derek's smile tightened. Of course. Every little bit helps. I was thinking maybe you could cover the flowers. Emma loves peonies, and they're quite expensive. But I'm sure we could find a reasonable alternative that fits your budget. Every little bit helps. Cover the flowers. Reasonable alternative. I looked past him to where Emma was talking with Patricia, and I saw at that slight slump in her shoulders, that practiced smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She was trying so hard to fit into this world, to be what Derek wanted, to become someone her mother might not even recognize. "Derek," I said quietly, "can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Do you love my daughter?" He blinked, caught off guard. "Of course I do." "Why would you ask that?" "Because in your father's entire speech, he never once mentioned her family. Where she comes from, who raised her, and you. You look at her like she's a prize. You won, not a person you love." His face went cold. "I think you've misunderstood." "Have I?" "You don't ask about her mother. You don't ask about her childhood. You don't ask what matters to her. You just assume she'll be happy with ice sculptures and expensive flowers and a wedding designed to impress your colleagues." "With all due respect, Thomas," Derek's voice dropped low. "Dangerous. You don't know anything about what Emma and I have, about our relationship, about our world." "Our world," I repeated, meaning not mine. "I didn't say that. You didn't have to." People were starting to notice, to turn, to watch. Derek stepped closer, and I could see the calculation in his eyes. Whether to make a scene, whether it was worth it. "Look," he said through clenched teeth, "I understand you're protective of Emma. That's admirable. But you need to understand something. Emma is moving up in the world. She's going to have opportunities, experiences, a life that," he paused, searching for polite words, "a life that's different from what she grew up with." "Different how?" "Better," he said simply. "And I can give her that. I can give her security, status, a place in society that a man like me never could?" His silence was answer enough. I nodded slowly. "Derek, let me tell you something. I've met a lot of people in my 65 years. Rich people, poor people, and everything in between. And you know what I've learned?" "What's that?" His tone was patronizing now. "The truly wealthy don't need to tell anyone about it. They don't need to prove it with ice sculptures or imported chefs or parties designed to impress. They're secure enough in who they are that they don't need external validation." That's a nice philosophy for someone who doesn't have to worry about maintaining a certain lifestyle. Is that what you think Emma wants? A certain lifestyle? Emma wants what every woman wants. To be taken care of, to not have to worry, to know her husband can provide. And there it was. The core of it. The fundamental misunderstanding of who my daughter actually was. "You're wrong," I said quietly. "Emma wants to be seen, to be valued for who she is, not what you can buy for her. Her mother raised her to know her own worth, and it has nothing to do with your bank account." Derek's jaw clenched. "You simply don't understand our world, Thomas. This is how things work at a certain level. This is what's expected. And frankly, I'd appreciate it if you didn't project your limited understanding onto my relationship with your daughter. Our world. Limited understanding." The words hung in the air between us. "You're right," I said. "I don't understand your world. I don't understand how a man can be so focused on appearances that he forgets to notice when the woman he claims to love is drowning in expectations. I don't understand how you can stand here, at a party celebrating your engagement, and talk more about your career prospects than about Emma herself. His face flushed red. "I think you should leave. This isn't your party to throw me out of. Actually, it is. My parents are hosting. And I don't think your presence is appropriate anymore." People were definitely watching now. The whole room had gone quiet. Emma pushed through the crowd. "Derek, what's happening?" "Your father is making a scene," Derek said, not looking away from me. "I've asked him politely to leave." "Dad?" Emma looked between us, confused and hurt. I could have explained, could have defended myself, could have told her what Derek had said, how he'd spoken about her, about us, about the world he thought we weren't good enough for. But I didn't want to make her choose. Not here, not like this. "I'm sorry, sweetheart," I said to her. "I think it's best if I go." "No, Dad, wait." But Derek's hand was on her arm, holding her back. "Let him go, Emma. He's obviously not comfortable here." I looked at my daughter one more time, saw the tears in her eyes, saw her torn between the man she loved and the father who raised her. And I left. I didn't go back to the hotel. I drove. Through Vancouver, across the Lions Gate Bridge, up into the mountains until the city lights were just aglow below me. I pulled over at a scenic viewpoint and sat in the rental car, hands shaking with an anger I hadn't felt in years. Not anger at being insulted. I'd been insulted before, been looked down on, dismissed, underestimated. But this was my daughter, my Emma, and I'd just watched her fiancé reveal himself to be exactly the kind of man I'd feared he was. Someone who valued status over substance, appearance over authenticity. My phone rang. "Emma." "Dad, I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened, but—" "Emma, I need to ask you something. And I need you to be honest." "Okay. Are you happy?" She was quiet for a long moment. "What kind of question is that?" "A simple one. With Derek, with the wedding planning, with all of it. Are you happy?" Yes, of course. Why wouldn't I be?" "Because you don't sound happy. You sound stressed, overwhelmed, like you're trying to be someone you're not." "Dad, every bride is stressed. It's normal." "Your mother wasn't stressed. She was excited. Even with our tiny city hall wedding, she was glowing. You sound like you're preparing for a business merger, not a marriage." "That's not fair," she said, but her voice cracked. "Baby girl, I just want you to be happy, truly happy. Not performing happiness for Derek's parents or his friends or anyone else. Just genuinely, deeply happy." "I am," she insisted. "Derek loves me. He wants to give me everything. Everything except the simple acknowledgement that you're perfect exactly as you are. That where you come from, who raised you, the life you had before him, all of it is valuable. He doesn't think that, doesn't he? When's the last time he asked about your mother, about your childhood? When's the last time he wanted to hear stories about growing up in Etobicoke instead of talking about his ski chalet?" Silence. "I love you, Emma, more than anything. And if Derek makes you truly happy, then I'll support that. But I won't stand by and watch you erase yourself to fit into a world that should be honored to have you in it." "I'm not erasing myself," she said, but she didn't sound convinced. After we hung up, I sat in the dark for another hour. Then I made a call to my lawyer. "Bill, it's Thomas. I need you to do something for me." "Name it." "I want you to contact Thornton Financial. Tell them the Riverside Holdings account is interested in moving forward, but only with a specific account manager." "Which one?" "Anyone except Derek Ashworth." There was a pause. "You sure about this, Tom?" "I'm sure." "And Bill? I want it done quietly. No explanation, just a simple. The client has requested a different point of contact. Consider it done." I flew back to Toronto the next morning. Emma called twice, but I let it go to voicemail. I needed time to think, to figure out if I'd done the right thing, if protecting my daughter from a man I believed would make her miserable was worth the pain I'd caused at the engagement party. The house felt empty when I got home. I kept expecting Sarah to be there, to hear her voice asking how the party went, to get her advice on what to do next. Instead, there was just silence and the unfinished birdhouse still waiting in my workshop. Monday morning, Bill called. "It's done." Thornton received the message. "They're assigning Derek's colleague Michael Chen to the Riverside account. Derek will be informed today. Thank you. Tom, I have to ask, what did this kid do to deserve this? I told him. About the dinner, about the engagement party, about the casual condescension, the dismissive remarks, the fundamental disrespect. Christ, Bill said when I finished. You could destroy more than his career, you know. You could make sure he never works in finance again. I don't want to destroy him. I want him to learn, to understand that actions have consequences, that treating people like they're beneath you because they don't fit your narrow definition of success is wrong. And if Emma finds out you did this, then I'll deal with that when it comes. It came sooner than I expected. 3 days later, Emma showed up at my house. She didn't knock, just used her key and found me in the workshop. Derek lost the Riverside account, she said without preamble. I set down the sandpaper I was using. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you? Her eyes were red. Because his boss said the client specifically requested he not be involved, that they wanted a different account manager. That happens sometimes in business. Dad, she stepped closer. Tell me the truth. Did you do this? I could have lied. Could have played innocent. Could have protected myself. But I'd raised her to value honesty above all else. Yes. The word hung between us like a stone dropped in still water. Why? Her voice broke. Why would you do that to him? To me? Because he needs to learn that people aren't disposable. That respect isn't determined by someone's bank account or job title. And because you deserve better than a man who looks at your father and sees someone not worth his time. He doesn't think that, Emma. He told me directly that you were moving up in the world, that I couldn't understand because of my limited understanding. He spoke about you like you were a project, a trophy, not a person he loves. She was crying now. You don't know him like I do. He's stressed about work. He was probably just making excuses for him already, explaining away behavior that hurt you. That's not love, sweetheart. That's survival. I can't believe you'd sabotage his career because you don't like him. I didn't sabotage his career. I simply chose to do business with someone else. That's my right as a client. She froze. Wait, you're the client? You're Riverside Holdings? Among other things. I don't... What do you mean, among other things? And there it was. The moment I'd been avoiding for 5 years. The moment where I'd have to explain why I lived in a small house and drove an old truck and wore the same gray suit to important events. Emma, sit down. I don't want to sit down. I want you to explain what's happening. Fine. Riverside Holdings is one of my companies. I have several. They're the structured remains of what I built when you were growing up. The construction company wasn't just a small operation, Emma. By the time I sold it, we had contracts all over Ontario. Commercial developments, infrastructure projects, government buildings. She stared at me. How much are we talking about? Enough that your wedding, no matter how elaborate, won't make a dent. Enough that I was anonymously paying for Derek's mistakes without him knowing. What mistakes? The Riverside account he lost? I was going to give it to him. Through back channels. Quietly. So he'd think it was his own merit. Because I knew how important it was to his career. And despite my personal feelings, I wanted you to have a husband who felt secure and successful. Then why pull it away? Because the engagement party made it clear that no amount of success would make him respect people he considers beneath him. And I won't fund the career of a man who speaks about my daughter like she's something he acquired. Emma sank into the chair I'd carved from maple. You've had this money all along? All this time, you've been living like this, when you could afford. I could afford anything, I said gently. But your mother and I decided a long time ago that we didn't want money to change who we were. We donated most of it, set up trusts for you, for charity, for causes your mother cared about, kept enough to live comfortably but not ostentatiously. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted you to grow up normal, to understand the value of work, of earning, of not taking things for granted. Your mother was adamant about that. And after she died, I don't know, it seemed easier to just keep things as they were. Derek thinks you're poor. I know. He's been... Oh my God. Her face crumpled. He's been making comments, small things, about helping you financially, about making sure you're taken care of in your old age, about how I shouldn't worry, that he'll make enough money to support both you and me. And how did that make you feel? She was silent for a long moment, uncomfortable, like he was somehow taking over your role, like he saw you as my dependent instead of my father. That's because he does. He sees me as an obligation, a burden, someone to be managed rather than respected. But now he's lost this huge account. His boss is furious. He might not make partner for years. And is that my responsibility? To guarantee his success regardless of how he treats people? No, but, Dad, I'm supposed to marry him in 7 months. Are you happy about that? And there it was again, that question. The one that mattered more than Derek's career or my money or any of it. Emma put her face in her hands. I don't know anymore. Over the next weeks, I watched my daughter wrestle with a decision I knew only she could make. Derek called her constantly, promised to change, to be better, to respect me more. But even in his apologies, I heard the same thing. He was sorry he'd offended me, but he didn't understand why what he'd said was wrong. 2 months before the wedding, Emma came to the house again. She looked tired, but somehow lighter. I broke it off, she said quietly. I set down my coffee. Are you sure? I am, I realized. I was so focused on the idea of the wedding, of the life Derek painted, that I forgot to notice I was changing everything about myself to fit into it. The way I dressed, the way I talked, the things I valued. And the final straw was when he suggested we move you into a retirement community. Said it would be better for you. But really, I think he just didn't want you nearby. Didn't want reminders that I came from somewhere he considered less than. I'm sorry you're hurting. I'm not, though. That's the weird thing. I'm sad, but I'm also relieved. Like I just stepped off a treadmill I didn't even realize I was on. I hugged her, long and tight, the way I used to when she was small and the world seemed scary. Your mother would be proud of you, I said, for knowing your worth, for choosing yourself. 6 months later, Emma met someone else, a teacher named David who drove a beat-up Honda and volunteered at a literacy program. He came to dinner at my house, asked about my construction business with genuine interest, and told Emma she looked beautiful in jeans and a t-shirt. When David asked for my blessing to marry Emma, he did it in my workshop, surrounded by sawdust and unfinished projects. I know I can't give Emma the kind of life someone like Derek could, he said honestly. I'll probably never make 6 figures or belong to country clubs, but I promise to see her every day, to value where she comes from as much as where we're going together, to respect the people who shaped her into who she is. That's all I could ask for, I told him. As I write this, Emma and David have been married for 3 years. They have a small house in the beaches, a dog named Barley, and the kind of quiet, genuine happiness that doesn't need to be performed for anyone. I still live in Etobicoke, still drive my old Silverado, still work in my workshop most days. But I did make one change. I funded a scholarship program at the hospital where Sarah was treated. Full ride for nursing students from working-class families. Kids who come from the kind of background I came from, who know what it means to work hard, to struggle, to be underestimated. I named it the Sarah Henderson Memorial Scholarship because she understood something Derek never could, that dignity isn't determined by your bank account, that respect is earned through character, not currency, and that the measure of a person isn't what they have, but how they treat people who can do nothing for them. Derek, I heard through mutual connections, eventually made partner at a different firm. Good for him. I hope he learned something from losing that account, from losing Emma. I hope he treats his wife better than he planned to treat my daughter. But honestly, I don't think about him much anymore. I think about Emma, about David, about the grandchildren they're planning for, about the life Sarah and I built on calloused hands and honest work, about the lesson I hope I taught that silence isn't weakness, that respect goes both ways, and that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away from people who can't see your value. I am the man who taught my future son-in-law the most expensive lesson of his life, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat, not for revenge, not for satisfaction, but because my daughter deserved better. And sometimes love means making sure people understand that even when it costs them everything they thought they wanted. The sunset is falling through my workshop window now, painting the sawdust gold. I have a birdhouse to finish. Emma and David are coming for dinner tomorrow. And somewhere out there, my late wife Sarah is smiling. knowing I kept my promise to her. I protected our daughter, not with money, not with power, but by making sure she knew her worth. And that, in the end, is the only legacy that matters.